Our topic is to what extent can teachers' use of group discussion affect students' motivation in learning English grammar. Group discussion is a kind of cooperative activity. Students can work together to produce greater learning outcomes, as some students are afraid of answering wrong in front of the class. Only a few of them would answer questions in class. However, in group discussions, students can exchange information and their opinions freely, and this can also reduce their fear of providing wrong views. Students will be more willing to participate in group discussions, and this facilitates their learning outcomes. Research has shown the research that motivation has a positive effect on students' learning performance. So we would like to see whether the use of group discussion can affect students' motivation in English language learning. Stone has remarked that the English proficiency of Hong Kong graduates are low because of insufficient grammatical and vocabulary knowledge. This is probably due to the affection of our internalized knowledge on the first language we use. Grammar is then extra difficult for Hong Kong students to learn. Therefore, the grammatical aspect has been our investigating area in the study to show if group discussion can enhance students' motivation. Their learning performance can then be improved. If it is proven that the use of group discussion can promote students' motivation in grammar learning, teachers can use this method more frequently in class to facilitate students' interest in grammar learning and promote their learning outcomes.
This is the theoretical framework. The theory is about cooperative learning theory. By definition, it is a group learning activity organized so that learning is dependent on the socially constructed exchange of information between learners in groups and in which each learner is held accountable for his or her own learning and is motivated to increase the learning of others. And when we look into the literature, we have discovered different positive and negative theoretical views on cooperative learning. For example, Johnson & Johnson indicate that students excel more efforts to achieve with the use of cooperative learning. On the other hand, Bishnoi holds the view that individuals may not feel comfortable in a group setting, as there may contain fear of criticism, which may create anxiety and keep them away from benefiting from the instruction. However, Johnson & Johnson suggests that there can be another benefit of cooperative learning, as they propose that, with cooperative learning, students can build more positive and supportive relationship, including the relationship with diverse individuals within a group setting. However, from Bishnoi's point of view, it is still possible that group members cannot compromise, but they are graded in a group manner. Meanwhile, again, the views on whether cooperative learning brings advantages or disadvantages to more capable and less capable students remains controversial. As Gorbani and Azamashari suggest that both more capable and less capable students can take advantages from cooperative learning, because the gifted students can play the role of experts in groups, which can make them develop better, while the poor students can freely express themselves, have a voice in the class, and improve their critical thinking within group settings. However, on the other hand, Randell suggests that some brighter students may need to explain the same thing over again and again to the less capable students, which makes them suffer from negativity, while the less capable students may be passive and are not willing to focus on the task.
The title of the first empirical work is Cooperative Learning Groups in an EFL Grammar Classes, The Learners Boost Outcomes, the case of second-year EFL students at Clemson University. The research purpose is to check whether and how cooperative learning may boost EFL students' grammar confidence. For the research methods, the context is set on second-year LMD students of English at Clemson University. For the data collection method, they used questionnaires for both teachers and learners. For the research findings, students demonstrate higher motivation. Students prefer to work in groups while learning English language and grammar. Also, collaborative learning does not alleviate scholars' academic achievements in learning grammar, but then some teachers may consider collaborative learning as wasting time. For the author's critical comments, the author believed that cooperative learning is beneficial to grammar learning, and more research and suggestions for improvement on cooperative learning is needed. Now we come to the second empirical work, and the title is Effect of Group Work on EFL Students' Attitudes and Learning in Higher Education. The research purpose is to investigate the advantages of group work in exams in the English department. For the research methods, the context is set on 40 EFL undergraduate students in the English department. For the data collection method, they adopted open-ended questionnaires, exam results, and observations. And for the research findings, they find out that group work did not boost the learning ability of the students. Also, the majority seemed to enjoy group work more than working individually. The majority also felt that it is more motivating, and this is actually also the most evident effects of group work from the instructor's observation. And then some students added that they gave more attention to group work. Many students hope that every class would include group work, but then there is a main disadvantage, that is the dominance of one member in the group. For the author's critical comments, I believe that the groups can be formed earlier. So in the beginning of the semester, students should be given a chance to familiarize themselves with their peers so that they will be more comfortable to engage in group discussions. Also, the instructor should constantly view the work of the group so that he could follow up with the group work.
At present, many research have focused on the relationship between motivation and language learning, but only a few of them have covered on the relationship between motivation and grammar learning, which is a more specific area. On the other hand, we would like to focus more on the Hong Kong context in this study, because grammar is extra difficult for Hong Kong students to learn as affected by our first language knowledge. This will be our investigating area in this research.
And our research purpose would be to explore whether group discussion increases university students' motivation in English grammar learning.
Our research question is, to what extent can teachers' use of group discussion affect students' interest in learning English grammar, self-study time on learning English grammar, and students' attitude towards learning English grammar?
We have decided to use action research as our research design. As in our action research, we propose the research question: to what extent can teachers' use of group discussion affect students' interest in learning English grammar, self-study time on learning English grammar, and students' attitude towards learning English grammar? And our goal of this action research is to improve students' motivation on learning English grammar. And the theory of this action research will be based on cooperative learning. And for the method, we are using qualitative research method and process the research within a specific class. And to increase the validity of our research, we will be using triangulation, which indicates that we're using multiple sources of data, so that we can collect data by observation, interviews, and questionnaires, so as to increase the validity. More so, we will inspect multiple perspectives, so as to increase the validity of our research through investigating students' interest, self-study time, and attitude towards learning English grammar.
The participants for this research would be 60 sophomore students from the same grammar course in Hong Kong Baptist University.
For the sampling process, we would like to make use of the convenient sampling method on both observation, questionnaires, and interview parts. As we are doing an action research study, The class which the teacher taught will be observed in terms of level of participation in their group discussion. Also, paper-based questionnaires will be sent to the class. On the other hand, interviews will be held to students.
We have selected a qualitative study for the following reasons. First, it helps us to describe and understand a complex phenomenon, which is said to be the student's motivation on learning English grammar. Second of all, it describes the situation with rich detail. It also helps us to comprehend the dynamic process, which is said to be the motivations of unchanging and changing situations in this research. Last but not least, qualitative study allows us to specifically focus on local Hong Kong classroom contexts and conditions. So we mainly focus on two types of data collection methods. One is experiencing and the second one is inquiring. So for experiencing, we're going to observe each student's behavior and level of participation, as well as we're going to take field notes on the basis of individual settings as well as group settings. And for inquiring, we're going to interview each student and in order to gain detailed explanation. Then we will ask each student to fill in paper-based questionnaire and to check their attitude towards learning English grammar. These two methods will also be set among individual settings and group settings. So there are three main questions we're going to ask students during the research process. The first one is, what are students' level of interest on learning English grammar? Teacher at this stage will complete observation and reflection to evaluate if students obtain high level, medium level, or low level of interest on learning English grammar. Students at this stage will be required to complete a survey and to rate their interest on grammar lesson from 1 to 5. For the second question, it is asked that how much self-study time students spent on studying English grammar. The result will be obtained through the means of survey, so students have to be required to write down the amount of time that they use for self-study on learning English grammar. And also, they will be asked about questions on the amount of time that they use on self-study on learning English grammar through the means of interview. Last but not least, it will be the question of what are students' attitudes towards learning English grammar. Teacher will be complete their observation and reflection at this stage to test their extent if they are holding positive, neutral, or negative attitudes. And students at this stage will have to complete a survey again to grade on their attitude towards learning English grammar on grammar lesson from 1 to 5.
During the research procedure, we adopted a recursive plan. So first we have a question about the topic, which is, to what extent can teachers' use of group discussion affect students' motivation in learning English grammar? And then we look at some previous research which is relevant to our topic, and then it will be shown in the literature review. And then we'll have some new questions. So the new questions are more detailed compared to the topic. For example, for the part of motivation, we will look into students' interest in learning English grammar, their self-study time, and also their attitude towards learning English grammar through the effect of group discussion. And then we adopted some data collection method to collect data relevant to our research. And then finally, we'll do analysis on the findings. After the analysis, if we find out there's a need for further questions, further problems, or further improvement, we will pose new questions and then use another set of data collection methods to find out more results for further analysis to improve the quality of our study.